Which footy? Is this footy footy? This ain't footy. Is it footy? Footy, is that you? Oh, I gotta take a screenshot of this. Bam. Okay. Young Foot. If this is the footy, there's one of my homies way back in the day. Um, the homie Footy, Footloose, um, used to help us out at the label a lot. I think it was Sony. He was on Epic Records. And Young Footloose. A lot of guidance, a lot of education on the industry, how to move around, what to do. So Foot was always the homie. So shout out to Foot. Yeah, man. I'm gonna follow you, Foot. If that's you, if that's a real footy. It could be a fake footy. Let's see. What hat is this? Nishigawa. Ugh. West side. Repping that West. The can mentions BPA. Yeah, they used to have a UCC coffee used to have like mad. Um, they had some chemical in their shit. Oh no, it was some bread company. I can't remember. I'm getting it mixed up now. Just enjoy it. Don't drink too much of that shit. Uh, what metric most accurately measures the true health of a nation? Literacy, crime, GDP. I mean, all of them. You shouldn't be trying to reduce it down to just one specific thing that's going to give you the telltale of all. We live in a sophisticated, complex, layered society, and all of those things play a role in the total health of the society. That's just by saying like the heart is the most important part of the body, right? You can't live without a heart. Um, True, you can't live without a heart. But what about the quality of that life, right? Would you want a heart with no kidneys, a heart with no liver, a heart with no lungs? No. Like could a heart live without lungs? No. Could a heart live without kidneys? Um, no. There would have to be something you would have to do. What about the brain? The brain is most important, but what's good with a brain without no without let me see, like internal organs, like limbs and stuff you can kind of get away with, but the metaphor being that it's a system, and all of those things have a role. Some things have more of a immediate role, like if you turn this off, shit's gonna die. There's other things that you turn off, you got to find a way to replace it with something similar or something like that. But for the most part, you will want all of those pieces to be on an upward trajectory or some upward trend. You wouldn't want to like just fully focus on your hands, but like fuck your feet, right? It's like I'm just focused on my hands. Fuck these stupid feet. Like no, like like take care of your feet just as much as you take care of your hands. Because you will want both to be at the highest operating order. So you should be paying attention to all those metrics. You shouldn't just be looking at like one metric. Like all that shit has to be in balance. Like you got a crime-free like nation, but everybody dumb as balls. So it becomes like, oh shit, everybody's stupid. Like we want to increase that a little bit. Or like, man, it's full of crime. Everybody's geniuses, but there's crime everywhere. It's like, nah, let's temper that down. It's a system. It's complicated. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Oy, excuse me. I live in Portland, but I want to hear what you think of the ongoing Portland protests. Um, I mean, I don't know. Honestly, don't know. Honestly, don't really have an opinion on them. I don't honestly. Much love from the devil. Show your $1 million house. I don't have $1 million house. Actually, I don't. Why is that important? Uh, why don't I believe in the Israelites? Um, I mean, I just don't believe it. I don't see the. I just don't believe it. I don't believe it. I don't believe the core, like, initial conditions to sprout that type of movement. So it's unfortunate because as Muslims, you're kind of forced to have to kind of agree or at least validate certain, like, Judaic positions, um, Abrahamic traditions and stories. Unfortunately, but it's like I don't really believe that. Like, I don't really believe some of those stories to be true. I don't believe that some of those stories were generated um, from, like, divine places. It feels and seems and is more adept at this is men creating circumstances to try and explain their condition. Um, and not to say that there aren't, like, I don't believe that, like, for instance, I don't believe that the like the Egyptians were like this divine race of, like, pharaohs. I don't believe that. Um, I believe that there were pharaohs. I believe they had a lot of power. I believe that they had a certain relationship to the people that magnified them as being divine in a certain condition. But so I believe all of the context that there were people who believed that this stuff existed and that these people existed and they had sway over the population based on this stuff. But do I believe the stuff itself? No. Um, do I believe that the pharaohs were transported to another dimension? No. I don't believe that. I mean, their body, you can go dig their body. You can go look at them in museums. Like, people went in there and dug the bodies up. All that shit that they buried themselves with is still there, right? Um, so just kind of like, if you look at Egyptians like that, and you can look at Babylonians like that, and you can look at Mesopotamia, and you can look at all these ancient civilizations, Phoenicians, and you can bring to bear kind of like a modern common sense with a way more better, way more better, way more better concise understanding of the world, and you're able to look back in eras which motherfuckers didn't know how to wash their hands. Motherfuckers thought water would kill you. Like, just all kinds of things that have been proven to be untrue, but they attach all of this kind of religious spirituality pieces to it, and then believe in it fully because they don't have an alternative. So in a space where we have an alternative that's credible and you're looking back, a lot of that stuff just kind of falls apart under the common sense. Modern common sense, it ain't even modern science. It's just like modern common sense with a slight understanding of the way the world works, right? What exists and what doesn't exist, what's real and what isn't real. And then being able to find, like, that people were just lying. Like, people were fucking lying, right? Or they were in a what do you call it, charismatic states because they didn't understand how the brain works. So they took a dream as being a sign from the divine. And it's like, well, what if it was, so was every dream like that? Or was it just this one dream? What about the dream that you had when you jumped off a cliff? Was that divinely inspired? How come you didn't jump off a cliff? Right? But you just nitpick these other dreams to be the ones that, oh, this dream. Like, nigga, you're 80 years old. Like, how many dreams have you had? So it's that type of piece. I'm sorry for rambling, but getting back to that point is why I don't necessarily believe in some of the core tenets of the Judaic faith, and then the everything that sprouts out of that, which would be the Hebrew Israelites. But that's just me, you know. That's why I kind of don't believe in it. But not to say that people don't believe in it. Not to say that it didn't. People were empowered by that and built societies based on that, and it's them building a society based on that proof that this thing exists. Then if that's the case, then you got to go to the Mayans and the Incans and like any other place in the world that built the semblance of a society relative to their natural resources and natural limitations and conditions. And then if they have an opposing kind of religious or spiritual underpinning, but they're able to build society that's just as advanced or just as what have you, then what does that mean for them? Then they're just as valid as yours, or they're just as valid as yours, or that person's valid as yours. And what happens when you go around the world and you see multiple societies built on completely different sets of circumstances, religious underpinnings, for me, it doesn't eliminate that there's a creative force in the universe, which I believe, but there is something to all of these different, saying that society is a product of righteous belief in the divine, etc., based on these set of stories. But it's like, if you can go around the world and do that with every society, it's like all the shit just feels rather made up. Bro, I'm not Hebrew. I don't understand why that's such, again, and I remember we wanted to talk about that, and no, we were talking about, what word were we talking about? What were we talking about a couple chats ago? When did a certain word get injected into the conversation with black folks, and we started to kind of run with that? I forgot what it was. Does anybody remember? Can't remember. Not comparative religion. It's a very specific term. Oh, melanin. Like, when did melanin become like, melanin, nigga? You ain't got no melanin? You ain't shit. Like, when did that become a thing? But to this case about the Hebrew Israelites, like, when did whatever you want to call it, Israel, right? When did that become a thing? Because isn't Israel David's name? Isn't that what that is? Who changed their name? Was it David? And David became Israel? Somebody let me know in the chat. Yeah, melanin. Yeah, but when did it was Jacob, right? One of them, right? It was Jacob's name. So Jacob changed his name to Israel, or was his name Israel before, and he changed his name to Jacob? Didn't he lose like a wrestling match or something like that? Ishmael? Nah, I don't think it was Ishmael. It wasn't Isaac either. I don't think it was Isaac. I think it was Jacob. Feels right. Right? So you get Jacob changing his name to Israel, or Israel changing his name to Jacob after, wasn't it losing a wrestling match? Right? Right. Yeah, he who wrestles with God, right? Is that what it's supposed to be? So think about that. Just on that case, right? Think about that. Your name is someone who wrestles with God. How do you wrestle with God? Like, wrestle with the idea, the concept of God, were they being that metaphoric, right? And why would you have to use a metaphor to understand that? Here's where my expertise comes into play. Why would you use the wrestling metaphor talking about your relationship to God? Is it because you had some type of, I don't believe, this is me believing again, I don't believe that Jacob actually wrestled with God. I think that's impossible, right? Um, first of all, there's no way that happened. So it's like, okay, is he wrestling with the idea of God? Then you have to say, okay, was this metaphorical, this metaphorical angle about wrestling something that was actively being used at that time, right? Say I'm wrestling, because it sounds very easy and modern to us to talk about wrestling in that way as a metaphor, right? Like I'm wrestling with the idea, or I'm wrestling with like I'm doing battle with the idea, which is we can get, but we won't get into that. But just this metaphor of using it metaphorically, was that common language of the day, right? Right. So is the metaphor common language of the day? I know it's a metaphor. We've established that because we don't believe he wrestled with God, right? Okay. Is it a metaphor? Okay, yes, it's a metaphor. Okay, was that metaphor being actively used during the time in which this supposedly was taking place? That people were using the language of Israel or in whatever capacity to talk about their struggles with a certain thing. Yeah. Right. So thinking. We're not God. It's translated from Aramaic to Greek to Latin to English. So the original word was translated to four. Did it maintain it? How did it go from Israel to wrestle? Is the Rasal, Israel, Rasal, Rasal? Is that what that is? I need my computer. Time to do some etymology on the word wrestle. Whistle while you work. Wrestle etymology. Okay, it's Old English. Old English, Restellian, frequentive of restun to rest. Compare North Frisian wrestle, Low German restorlin. Figurative sense from the early 13th century. Wrestle, struggle. Okay, so let's just say a struggle, right? Okay, so maybe not that. So let's just say a struggle. Proto-Germanic. Ill will. Nope. Let's just look at Israel. Etymology. From the Hebrew name Resael, meaning God contends. From the roots Sarah, meaning to contend, to fight, and El, meaning God. In the Old Testament, Israel, who was formerly named Jacob, wrestles with an angel. So he wrestles with an angel. Why? So Sarah, while frequently the name refers to Sarah, the wife of Abraham in the Hebrew Bible, the Christian Old Testament Islamic Quran in Hebrew and Persian means woman of high rank, often simply translated as Princess Sarah. But what is that? Those are later interpretations. What's the original meaning? Copy. Now we gotta search some Hebrew. Jibber jabbery. Wait, what's the story of this? Why did he wrestle an angel? Why did, what's his name? Jacob. Let's see, wrestle with an angel or wrestle with God? Like some Jewish commentators, Islamic commentators described it as a punishment for Jacob failing to give tithes to God, but making an offering like a tithe to Esau. None of this feels right. And anyway, kind of gotta, anyway, sorry. I'm sorry, but I just, so it's stories like this that I don't really believe, right? Um, but in order, why do stories like this exist? And sometimes it's to validate a lineage or to attach oneself to a quote unquote divine lineage. And you have to kind of believe in the layers of that lineage and then where to put a person or put another person for the sake of telling a story about something. And in some cases, you can't get too wild with the story because people won't believe it. And then the other side of it, if you keep it somewhat basic, it seems a little bit more realistic, especially if you got people that are pre-primed with kind of following superstition and a priesthood that constantly makes them do shit. And, you know, your relationship to the world and not knowing how things work, and it can be easily put on that. So with that said, in conclusion, I don't necessarily believe in a lot of the underlying fundamental narratives that are there at their core that a lot of the other stuff is built on. So it becomes like it's hard to kind of like, oh, you're Black Hebrew Israelite. It's like, yeah, but I don't believe that Jacob wrestled an angel on the side of a river for no reason. Like just in the middle of the night, he's wrestling with this nigga all night on the side of a river. Nah, I don't believe it. I don't understand it. I don't understand why it happened. I don't understand why it would need to happen. It doesn't have any relative sense. No one was there to see it. It isn't like he wrestled in a stadium full of people and they all like, why? Why? So anyway. Still on topic of celebrity and politics. Thoughts on Killer Mike? I always think Killer Mike is dope. I think he's dope at what he does. I think he is able to articulate certain things that happen in society in a very thoughtful and insightful way. Um, you know, that part. Ugh. Sorry, I'm a little tuckered. What did you think about the Nick Cannon Rabbi Cooper dialogue? I didn't watch it. I mean, we could watch it. Let's see. Nicholas Cannon. Who is Rabbi Cooper? Let's see. Where did he come from? Robert Abraham Cooper is Associate Dean, Director of Global Social Studies Agenda of the Simon Wiesenthal Center, a leading Jewish human rights organization with over 400,000 family members. Damn. Born in New York, Abraham Cooper has been a longtime advocate for Jewish human rights cause on 5 continents. His extensive involvement in Soviet Jewry, including visiting refuseniks in the 1970s, open blah, 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 blah. Group relations. For 4 decades, Robert Cooper has overseen the Wiesenthal Center's international social action agenda, ranging from the worldwide anti-Semitic extreme groups, mass crimes, and faith religions, and struggle to thwart anti-Israel. And the struggle to thwart the anti-Israel divestment campaign. Why is that a struggle? I don't buy that. The divestment campaign, like that shit is bad. Like people make the decision not to buy or purchase products from companies that support building settlements, illegal settlements in Palestinian territory. Like, how's that bad? Like, how you fucked up trying to do that? What? Like, why? I don't even first of all, I don't even buy Caterpillar products. I don't need a bulldozer. Like, y'all need a bulldozer. Like, that's just strange to me to build. This has nothing to do with Rabbi Cooper. I'm still figuring out who he is. But this just is always, this always strikes me as like peep it, like social action agenda ranging from worldwide anti-Semitism with it, and extremist groups with it, Nazi crimes with it,